Welcome back to the 12th Man podcast and welcome back to another episode. We are going to be discussing, of course, Liverpool, who are now the runaway leaders, 15 points clear. It's looking pretty much like a foregone conclusion. Liverpool are going to be champions in May. Probably 5-1s will probably be enough now, maybe even less from their final 9 games to secure the title. But we're looking at a lot of talk in the media. Have Liverpool been the best team in a Premier League? Have they been fortunate with decisions? Have they been fortunate with injuries? Has everyone else underperformed? Is that one of the reasons why Liverpool are so far clear? Or is it just they're a great team and in any other league they would be champions anyway? We'll be looking at the Champions League as well towards the end of the show and looking back at the rest of the weekend's results. So, Owen, how are you? Of course, 15 points clear. It just seems like every week now this gap is getting bigger and bigger. And let's be honest, I don't even think Spurs could blow it from here. So Liverpool certainly no chance.
No, and the thing that's filled me with more confidence is yes, Arsenal beat PSV 7-1 last week there, but they can't score goals, and they can't. You seen
Yeah,
yesterday
that
to
was a
speak
bit of
about
a
it.
that was a bit of a one-off, wasn't it?
They because you seen like if a team comes out and plays Arsenal, they'll beat them. But if they sit back in a low block, they can't break them down as we seen yesterday. So it's and they're playing what they have Chelsea at the weekend. It wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea went there and got a point or got a win. So
Yeah, that's their game in hand. And of course, Liverpool have a huge game on Sunday in the League Cup. First chance to get a bit of silverware for slot. It would likely be they would win at least 2 trophies if they won on Sunday, possibly even 3 with the Champions League, which we'll be discussing later on in the show. But Owen, you once says to me that you hit these type of leagues where there's one team running away with it. It's quite boring. Are you finding it boring this season supporting Liverpool?
well, not boring, but I can see why other people would say it. I was like because people do want. I want the title races as well, but like you're saying, have we been there? But like it's not our fault. The rest of the league's been poor. It's like we have to be there and capitalize on it if the other teams aren't at their best. And have we been lucky with injuries? Yes. Have we got some decisions? Probably. But there's been games too where I think, in particular, the Everton game where we've been unlucky with some. So it swings and roundabouts. We're never going to have a season like this again where we go out all season without having significant injuries. You would say yes, Trent's been out for a week or two here, but if you take it back to last season, we were ravaged with injuries too round the end of the season. So we've just been fortunate with it this time around.
This is a bit of a disclaimer, by the way. These questions that I'm putting up are not necessarily what I think. It's just kind of general questions that are on the media. So when you see me putting
Yep.
up these posts, it's not to antagonize Liverpool fans or antagonize anybody. These are all kind of
You
questions
see
that I put
the
on for the show. But
Did you see the
I do hit that saying of best team in a Premier League because
yeah,
Man
so
City got
the
100 points one year and they finished so far clear of the next. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a Premier League. But from an entertainment point of view, I do think there's nothing really on the line here apart from European places now. For me, the bottom three's done and dusted. The league's over. There's not much to play for after this international break. Teams that are fighting for Champions League and Europa League is probably about it.
it is I but like for me, I still enjoy no matter what the situation is. I still enjoy watching my team play well or we're fighting for nothing, well we're in title races or battles for top four. I still look forward to my weekends of watching Liverpool. Like so, even if we have this league wrapped up, say in the next month, I'll still watch the matches like because it gives us an advantage too. Maybe if we do get it wrapped up early, then we can just fire whoever we want out in the league and focus on the Champions League if we're still on it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's definitely helped Liverpool won the league is the inconsistency of all our teams. Owen, I mean, Arsenal can't string results together. I think Stefan says to me the most they've won all seasons 4 in a row or 5 in a row. Haven't
Yeah.
really been like on a big run of winning games. Yes, they've been undefeated at times for a long spell, but not actually winning. Arsenal have actually only won 15 out of 28 games, so just over half their games.
They've
Which I
drawn
mean,
10.
we spoke about the Shelburne and Derry title race, where I think Shelburne won the league with half their games. They won 18 out of 36. So thinking any other season, it's probably fair to say that Arsenal probably wouldn't be second with
Yeah.
that kind of ratio so far.
Who
So
says?
it doesn't
Who
necessarily.
says that?
It's just
Well,
two things. One, it's either a really, really competitive league where anyone can beat anyone, really, apart from Liverpool winning most of their games. Everyone else seems to be capable of beating anyone. Or there's a real, real lack of consistency amongst teams that are good, but haven't been good enough in certain games. So, I mean, where do you stand on it?
it's probably a bit of both. Like when you look at it, nobody expected Man City's drop off this season. Nobody expected them to be like sitting here now, going into the last international break, fighting for top four, like, or top five, or whatever it's going to end up being. But I do think yes. But Pep said himself today, I've never in my lifetime, anyway, watching the Premier League, seen like the middle of the league be so competitive. If you get me, like even if you're looking at the league table, you still have Fulham and made chance of Europe, Bournemouth, Brentford have an outside chance. So it's like from them and down, I think it's been very competitive. And the fact that Liverpool, the fact that Liverpool have been the best team, yes, it's down to our teams not performing at their best. But for me, we've been the best team this season, and the stats and the league table shows that.
Yeah, of course, somebody pointed out to me, an Arsenal fan, believe it or not, says to me, Liverpool have had 9 penalties this season, more so than any other team. Compared to Arsenal's 2. Arsenal have actually had 2 penalties and 5 red cards. Liverpool have had 9 penalties, and they haven't had anybody sent off in a game. Now, again,
I
that
also
can point
seen
to luck, that can point to bad decision making, that can point to a few things. But I do have to say, and I have to be honest with the penalties. There's been a lot of penalties I think Liverpool have got that other teams haven't got for whatever reason. I don't know. There just seems to be so many 50-50s. I mean, for example, Southampton have been by far the worst team in the league this season, and Liverpool have played them 3 times, and in all 3 games they've had key decisions go their way to beat them. They've had them key decisions to beat them. So,
I
we
do
spoke
think
about
the
it
two
earlier this season. I
penalties.
think Liverpool have been a bit more convincing since. But Liverpool have won a lot of games by decisions like penalties or 1 goal margin victories that maybe our teams haven't done. I mean, it does suggest and I suppose looking at the PSG game on Tuesday night, I mean, PSG looked 10 times the team Liverpool did on the night, for example.
It, but then that's not on Liverpool. That's on the refs. They're not consistent either.
No, exactly.
So
This is not they say that Liverpool are getting favours off referees. I mean, me and referees, I think they're as honest as they can be. But I
uh,
do think in those moments this season, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, the Nunez one Saturday, I think that's as soft as anything. I mean, I've seen so many like that this season not been given, and Liverpool get it on the day.
it was very soft. But once the ref gives it, they're not going to overturn it. The handball one was clear as day. Like he moved his arm towards the
And if I'm right
in
in
front of
saying
the.
the handball one, that player did the exact same thing in the away game.
I was just going to come on that. He's done that twice against us this season. So maybe they need to check his bank account for betting
And I
on
want
the
to I
results
want
of
to
that.
cast your mind back to the League Cup quarterfinal with Southampton, where I think somebody was cleaning through at the end, and Kwanzaa pushed the player.
Yeah.
And it was very similar actually to the Kanate thing on Tuesday night where he pushed the PSG player. And that seems to do you think in them instances this season Liverpool have got quite fortunate to get away with some of the ones that they have committed?
Probably, but then you could probably look at games where you're saying in every game for every team, like there's probably games I could look at the season. Oh, we should have got a foul there. We should have got a
Well,
foul there.
I
But
want to cast your mind back. I know you're saying about fouls there and whatever, but I can't remember in any game this season that Liverpool have had a major decision go against them where it was an injustice. Like last season, they had the VAR thing at Spurs. That was ridiculous, where
yeah,
they messed it up. But this season in particular, I think, like you mentioned the Everton game, but I mean, it was all 50-50. It was all in the middle of the pitch. In terms of penalty incidents, I can't think of any that that's gone against them.
no, have we even conceded a penalty this season? I can't remember.
It is quite strange, that all these things have kind of went their way at times.
I'm trying to think. Have we conceded a penalty this season?
So whilst they've been an
Uh,
unbelievable team this season, I do think they've had some help. Not
oh,
not
they have like,
deliberately, not deliberately. Just it's been fortunate that it's fell for them so many times.
but I will come back and then say if we didn't get that look, we'd still be walking away with the league because we've been the best team. We've lost one game all season. They're a team that's probably going to qualify for Champions League football. So
I think the Southampton results tell you everything. That they struggled in all 3 games to beat them, and they've been getting beat handsomely. So I think there has been games like that. The Wolves games, I think they've had decisions go against them. There was 2 penalties against Wolves that went. They had to beat them as well. So I think they've struggled in certain games, and when they have struggled, bar the Forest game, I think they've had something go their way. So almost when they've needed it most, when they've needed a decision most, it's kind of fell for them.
I think in the Southampton game at the weekend we were awful in the first half, but the second half we could have beat them by 4, 5, 6. I genuinely think if we hadn't got them 2 penalties, we still would have went on to win the game. But people say that sometimes if you're going to be a championship winning team, you have to have luck along the way, and it seems that we have at times. But as I say, I think
you're right. Any you go through every team that won a game or won a league, they've had decisions go their way.
Look at Man City a few years ago. Mind the Rodri handball against Everton that wasn't given. Yep. So that you could go back for countless seasons. I was reading today. You're all about that penalty stat, but then I think it's the most chances created from open play are Liverpool's as well. So I think. Yeah. Did you see that boy? Did you see that boy on Arsenal fan TV last night, Julian, saying the ref because of the wall? That's why they. I was like, oh, shut up.
There is a lot of people think that the Coot thing has helped Liverpool. The fact that there seemed to be something against Liverpool there.
I seen your man DT saying.
But I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah. I seen your man DT last night saying David Coot has a lot to answer for. I was like, okay.
But I think these things can come and go. I think this is I think next season Liverpool fans are going to be ranting and raving about referees because I think this will probably go the other way next season.
I rant and rave about them anyway, so I'll never change my mind.
Just on Liverpool, I mean, of course they're going to be champions this year. I mean, do you think when the season kicks off next year, they'll be seen as favourites, or do you think it'll be very open?
I think next year it'll be more open because Man City will get better, Arsenal will buy a striker, Chelsea, God knows, Spurs depends on the manager situation. You don't know there.
Get better, I think.
Well, you can't get any worse. Newcastle, it just depends what happens with their summer. But I think regardless of what happens, we'll be up there challenging again. I don't think we'll go anywhere. I think the way it is now, I think the top 3 teams at the minute will always be Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City in whatever order. But other than that, I don't know what order it's going to come or who's going to finish where. But we'll think about that. We'll think about that in the summer. But at the minute, I'm just riding the wave here until it's mathematically confirmed.
Yeah, that's it. Liverpool coasting along this title. Let's look back at the weekend results because, I mean, there was a few big stories in there. Of course, the weekend started off. Forest beat Man City.
You think Nunez should have been sent off?
Nah. Yeah,
it was very lucky though because if he had put a bit more force on it, it was goal.
Stupid. But
I was reading our chat. Everyone was all get him off, and then he goes on and scores.
The only way that becomes a red card for me is if they do change the laws of the game. Whereas if you do not attempt to play the ball, it's an automatic red card. Because he deliberately took him. I mean, the ball was nowhere near, so it's. But it wouldn't surprise me in the next 5 years or so if the rule changed and you'll see more red cards for stuff like that because. I mean, he did not play the ball at all. So, I mean, if he deliberately attacked somebody out, then maybe that will change. But on the current laws of the game, it has to be excessive force, and it wasn't excessive.
I didn't see it live at the time. I saw it in highlights after, and I was like, nah, for me, it was a yellow, but very, very... He has that on him. He can be very petulant at times. But hopefully, we won't have to worry about that next season.
Yeah, if I think back, just obviously being Spurs, but if I think back to the Van Dijk on the Charleston, that's 10 times more of a red card than that is because there was force there. But
I was saying, hopefully we don't have to worry about Nunez next season. Hopefully he's away playing his trade somewhere else.
Before we move on, actually, I seen a video this week going around on TikTok and Twitter of Van Dijk bad challenges, and there was about 7 or 8. Since he's been at Liverpool, that none of them have been red cards, and I think a couple of them weren't. But I think at least 4 or 5 of them were red cards. Do you think there is a reluctance there to send him off because of the status? I mean, I think when Harry Kane was at Spurs, there was one Liverpool he should have been sent off. He took Robertson out, I think. because he was the English captain, I think it made it more difficult to send him off. Do you think with Van
yeah.
Dijk's stature, it makes it more difficult to send him off for some reason?
Maybe, but then if you look at players like Vidic, they got sent off all the time. So you don't know, and the
Because
one
I
for
honestly
me,
think if it had been the RA round with Richarlison and Van Dijk, Richarlison would have been sent off.
because he's that type of character, maybe. But no, the one I remember. Do you remember the one against Napoli in the Champions League where he absolutely crunched the man? I was like, how was that not a red card? So, there could be something to that, but rival fans always, because Liverpool doing well, like Arsenal fans always pick up, oh, this should have happened. But then I could probably point an hour clip where Liverpool players should have been, or team should have been sent off against us. So it works for you and it works against you, doesn't it?
That's it. I think Arsenal have run out of excuses. I mean, there's no doubt they've had really, really harsh. If you go to the two opposite ends of the table in terms of one team that's got away with things and one team that's been punished to the maximum, it's Liverpool and Arsenal. But
Yeah,
it
well,
still doesn't justify this points gap.
that's what I was saying to you and Stefan. All right, like to me, I think it's because maybe there's a subconscious in the referees that they're going right. I'm fed up with you now. We're antics, so they're just stamping down on it. Like I thought Arteta was embarrassing yesterday the way he acted in that interview after the game where he was asked is the title over and he's all, oh no, it's not the time to talk
I
about it.
think that's just frustration because he probably feels a bit like a lot of Arsenal fans where everything's went against them and they just see Liverpool receiving these things that are maybe going for them. But look, that could all change next season. Who knows? But let's move on, Owen, and look at the rest of the weekend's results because, of course, the weekend started with that big clash for the Champions League spots. Personally, I fancied Man City to go and beat Forest because I thought Forest were having a bit of a wobble. Forest reverted back to type, kept the clean sheet and nicked the goal at the end. Now, I didn't see this game, but I heard it wasn't a classic. But Forest did enough to win, and it puts them in a great position now. And they've got some really favourable fixtures. Now, of course, Forest, they haven't been in this position before, but I think Forest have one of the best run-ins based on league positions of any team.
Who do they have this weekend? I can't remember.
Oh, it's a good question. I do not have the fixtures in front of me here. My phone is charging, but you can probably tell me.
I'll check now. But every time we seem to think the Forest are wobbling, they always they were wobbling before Arsenal, and they drew 0-0, and then they got the 1-0 one here. Forest have where are they? They have a Twitch away on Saturday.
Yeah, so a good opportunity for more 3 points. But I mean, it brings Man City back into that danger zone of potentially missing out. And Forest get a big one. Forest are only 4 points behind Arsenal, which is pretty incredible.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if Arsenal continue their form, there's no guarantee they'll finish second.
Yeah. The way teams are looking to drag them on it, but I think at the moment they've got just enough of a cushion. However, if Chelsea were to turn over, it would really make it interesting for that last run, the 8 games after the break.
If Chelsea beat them and Forest won at the weekend, there's only a point on it.
Yeah, but obviously Chelsea will get closer to them. If Man City go and win their game, there'll be teams queuing up, but that'll be a big game for Arsenal on Sunday. They need to find a way to win that. But, what was your thoughts on this game?
Just like you, well, you didn't see it, but I watched it. But it was your typical
Forest performance.
Typical Forest. I just letting our team have the ball and hitting them on the counter, and they didn't have many chances. Like Hudson-Odoi hit the post just before he scored. I think De Bruyne hit the bar at one point. But have you seen the goal that they conceded? Because I think Ederson shoot.
It's a really poor season. I mean, obviously Forest fans will be thinking about this now because they'll be in delirium. But if they did make it into the Champions League, I mean, we've seen what happened with Newcastle and Villa, and I think Forest are a lot weaker in terms of squad depth. And we've seen what happened to Brighton last year in a weaker competition in the Europa League, who you would kind of put on Forest's level in terms of not obviously in club size, but kind of a big shock getting under where they finish. Yeah. I mean, potentially Forest, who were fighting relegation last year, they just about stayed up. I mean, as good as the Champions League would be, and we know that they'll probably spend, but they're not going to be able to attract top players over the likes of Liverpool and other teams. Could it potentially be damaging in the fact that they could be in a relegation battle next year with the extra games?
Oh, it could be. Like even Villa this season, I know they're still on the hunt, but where are they
Well, I
at the
mean, he
moment?
said if Villa had to get beaten Saturday, he'd probably says that was it. He'd probably out of it.
Uh,
They won to get back into it, but
they won 1-0, wasn't it, against Brentford? But
yeah,
no, I think for teams like Villa and maybe not Newcastle and but Forest, it's I think getting into the Champions League is all about the finances because they probably realistically know that they're not going to go far.
yeah.
But you look at Villa, like Villa are more or less in the quarterfinals, you would say, and who do they play then? Either Liverpool or PSG. So they're gonna have a tough, regardless of what happens tomorrow. They're gonna have a tough run.
Let's move on because Brighton scored a lit penalty against Fulham, and that made it 6 straight wins for Brighton after losing 7-0 to Nottingham Forest. I mean, that's got one of the shocks of the season in terms of the recovery since that, because there was a lot of Brighton fans, and I've seen a lot of Brighton journalists were saying that Husler was going to be under massive pressure after that result, and they've won 6 straight games since, and they've kind of
And
beat
now
teams on the run like Bournemouth, like Fulham,
they're
and it's been an unbelievable recovery. And they're now one of the favourites. They make that top 5. So, are you surprised at this kind of upturn in results?
not surprised because we say this all the time about teams like Brighton. They can go on losing runs. They can go on losing runs. They can go on winning runs. Like it wasn't so long ago. We were before Liverpool played Bournemouth. They run an 11 game winning streak or an unbeaten streak anyway. And but they've only won once in their last five. Is it?
Right. Yeah.
They've only won once in their last five. So it just shows you once you had a bit of form, the moment either way, once you lose a bit of form or had a bit of form, it tends to stick. But for teams like Brighton, like they're a well-run club. They lose players every season. They seem to bring in these gems. Like they lost McAllister and Caicedo last season. They brought in Baleba, and I know he hasn't played much, but Matt O'Reilly. They'll
Record
probably
turnover.
lose and then Rutter as well has been decent. I would assume they'll probably lose João Pedro in the summer, but they've already replaced. They've already brought on a striker from the Bundesliga. I can't remember his name, but I know he's a 19-year-old anyway. So they know what they're doing. Like, and your man Tony Bloom he knows what he's doing with his club. So I think
Everything he touches at the minute turns to gold.
literally, because what they made 108 million for Caicedo and then what 35 for
And I
McAllister.
don't know if Matoma was reading some of the news about people saying he wasn't worth that 75, 80 million that Saudi were calling him, because since that bid was rejected, he's form has just went on an upward trajectory.
It's I think the first game after that Saudi bid was mine the Chelsea one and mine the goal he scored in that Chelsea. Oh, it was sumptuous, like it was great. But I think even Fulham going on to Fulham, man, it's like they're one of them teams that won a few games and then always they never seem to like they're not like a Forest or a Brighton or a Villa. They always seem
Yeah, I think Fulham are what you would classify as probably a cup team. Like on their day can beat anyone, but on their day can lose to anyone.
but like Spurs at the minute.
That's the better version of Spurs, I think, at the moment, Fulham. But
Like,
let's move on to the half-5 game. Brentford took on Villa. Kind of fancied Brentford for this game just because of Villa's poor record after European action. Villa upturned that and won a 1-0 game. Brentford really, really pushed for them but couldn't get a goal. Brentford were unbelievable at home in the first half of the season, terrible away, and that form is completely reversed where they're getting all their points away from home now. I mean, do you think we're coming to the point with Brentford that Thomas Frank has taken them as far as he can in terms of he's established them as a Premier League team, but for him, personally, is his ceiling bigger than Brentford now? Do you think that, as long as he's there, mid-table is kind of going to be where they're at. They're not going to be relegated. They're going to just miss out on Europe because they're probably not consistent enough. And it kind of feels that they're a bit like a Crystal Palace now, where Frank maybe has outstayed Brentford in terms of, if he's going to go on and be labelled as a top manager, he probably has to go to a bigger club.
Like every time a new manager is needed, he's always linked of some sort. So I think
he's always briefly linked, but he's never really in the serious conversation for it.
Like, would you, if Ange left tomorrow, would you take him at Spurs?
No.
No. I think I don't know if he would get a big job in the Prem, but I think like at Dortmund or something in Germany, I could see that happening in the future because he has a good manager. But as you say, like he's not going to realistically, he's not going to win anything at Brentford. They're never they're unlikely to ever push for Europe. So what is it he wants out of his managerial career? Because if he leaves, the thing that will happen to Brentford is they'll probably go downwards. And just as we said about Brighton, Brentford will probably lose a couple of their players this summer. Like I can see Mbuemo leaving. I can see your man
Mm.
Shara
Look,
leaving.
I really like Frank. I think he's breath of fresh air. He's really, really pleasant. He never really moans about anything. He's a great tactician. He's great at getting marginal advantages. But I
Yeah,
just think the brand of football probably counts against him when it comes to these top jobs.
because he's very defensive. But
Not ultra defensive, but I
um,
just think he's pragmatic, isn't he? And if you look at somebody like Areola, where they're pretty on the front foot,
but you could
I think
argue.
people look at them and they see that's what they want.
I know it's a different quality, very different, but you could argue Schlott's a bit pragmatic at times.
Yeah, what's that? I think Jamie Redknapp referenced that during the Spurs game yesterday. Spurs were playing out yesterday against the Bournemouth team with high press, couldn't really do it, and
Yeah.
Liverpool went long ball against PSG. He says, so he says there's times to adapt, and Slott's been pretty good at that. And I think Frank is pretty adaptable. It would be interesting to see if he did end up at Spurs, how he would go about it. Would he be more front footed? But who knows? He could be in the conversation.
Well, I'm saying it now. If you go out on Thursday, which I don't think you will, I think you will have enough. We'll
Hold
talk
that
about
thought.
it.
We're going to come on to Spurs.
I was gonna-
And the other live game on Saturday was Wolves Everton, a 1-1 draw, which is a pretty good result for both teams. Wolves now 6 points clear of relegation. Everton are long safe. They're looking up now at the likes of West Ham, Spurs, United, and they're in that bunch. But the teams,
the fact that
yeah,
we're saying,
I spoke about this before the Bournemouth game yesterday with Spurs, and we'll come on to talk about Spurs. But I think all those teams in general are pretty much stuck because I was looking at. I think Fulham were like they're 8 points ahead. It was 9 points before Spurs. Obviously, United and Spurs got a draw. Obviously, West Ham if they play tonight, Everton got a draw. They've gained a point, but they're still 8 points behind Fulham in 10th. So, and Fulham are going to win games. They're not going to be stuck there forever. So, I mean, you'd have to win 3 or 4 games just to get even close to that top 10. And only 9 games left. So, I just don't see a world in where United, Spurs, West Ham, Everton can go anywhere. They're probably fighting to be the best of those 4 in terms of who's going to finish the highest out of them 4. But I kind of think they're stuck between that sort of 11th and 15th spot.
I think Spurs and United and Everton, I think all them teams will finish where Spurs are 13th.
Yeah.
So I think Spurs will finish 13th, 14th, 15th.
What's also not helped those teams below is Palace and Brentford have been on pretty good runs, so they've kind of been stretching as well. So they've not really been able to overlap them.
Yeah.
And the teams obviously in the top 10 have been picking up results, so it's just very difficult for those teams to make ground.
The funny thing is, at the start of the season, I remember right. I predicted Chelsea. They finished like 15th, so I was right. I was right in a part of the world, but not the right club.
Yeah. Let's move on to Sunday. Spurs were 2-0 down to Bournemouth, and it looked for all the world that they're going to lose again at home. Managed to find a way to fight back. I mean, as good as Bournemouth were, Spurs had the post twice before they scored. And, I thought when Bergville hit the post just after the Bournemouth goal, it was definitely not going to be our day. But Sarr flicks one and off the post. It was the third time they struck the upright. I think Bournemouth hit the upright. So the upright got plenty of work yesterday. And then a completely crazy decision from Kepa. Blew 2 points for Bournemouth, and Spurs fought back for a 2-2 draw. And I kind of felt that there could be a winner, but time just ran out in the end. But it was very entertaining one. I mean, it was true Spurs chaos. I mean, at the start, they could have been 3-0 down after 5 minutes. I mean, some really, really poor defending, some really poor decision-making. And, I mean, the form of Clivertson, you would have fancied them to score at least one of those chances, especially the second one.
Vicario was in inspired form with his hands yesterday, but I thought
he's been absolutely incredible since he's come back. Vicario, they've missed him so much.
He has, especially when you compare
him to PSG. Vicario's having to do every week for Spurs at the moment because they're conceding that many chances. I mean, only for the AZ game we'd be out of it with Vicario. I mean, he made some big saves against Man City in that first half. Huge saves yesterday in that game against Bournemouth. He's been the Ipswich game too, actually. I mean, they could have been 3-0 down after 5 minutes there as well.
It must be. I don't know if it's rewarding or frustrating for a goalkeeper to be that busy because
I think personally he enjoys it.
Because he has. I thought yesterday he was a bit shaky with his feet at times. I thought. Do you remember the one where I think it was Evan
I
Nison's?
think, to be honest, his outfielders were crippling him. He probably delayed a
Yeah,
little bit too long in clearing the ball,
Carragher.
but he was so
Carragher
reluctant to kick it
said,
long that he took too long. But
uh,
his players outfield weren't helping him.
Carragher said on commentary that Romero had one of the worst, the worst games of football I've seen him have. He was awful. Like he could have, as you say, it could have been 3-0 to Bournemouth in
Is
10
that
minutes.
the issue that Spurs have? Is that they've had so many players out for so long in terms of, that was Romero's first game for 3 months. Van de Ven grew into it a bit more, as did Romero. But even when Van de Ven came on, he looked a bit rusty, and he hasn't played for 3 months really, apart from that sort of running they got against Elfsborg in January. But the fact that they've had so many players out for such, Solanke looked miles off it. He's been out
Yeah,
for a while.
he didn't.
Is that the issue, that whilst it's great to get these players back, they're just so far off the piss?
It's always say like it's great to be back, but being match fit is a completely different ball game. So I think, as you say, like the league doesn't really matter for Spurs. Like if he's had a won yesterday, lost yesterday, and drew, it doesn't really matter. Your season hinges on Thursday night. But I thought like in the first half, Bournemouth probably should have been 3-4 up. And as you said,
I thought Bournemouth ran us ragged at times. I
you,
mean, there was a spell at the start of the game. I thought we got back on it towards half time, but for most of the second half, we were ran ragged. And Bournemouth really were opening us up at will.
Bournemouth and our team, like they're going to lose their players in the summer. like,
Yeah, I mean, they must be kicking themselves with them chances that they must. I mean, they were great opportunities.
I mean that ball,
Clivert,
that ball,
who was outstanding again. Clivert, apart from his
yeah,
finishing, which he's been really good at recently, let them down. And
that
I think
cross
that'll be two
from
massive points in the grand scheme of things for Bournemouth. That could be the difference between
Europe and
Champions League
Euro.
and Europa League.
I think Bournemouth would take Conference League. To be honest, like it's more like look at the size of the club, like but that cross from Kirkes was probably the best cross I've seen in a long time. Like if Trent had that, I'd be screaming about it. But hopefully, Kirkes will do plenty more of that next season when he's on the red of Liverpool.
Yeah. There's
Hopefully,
a lot of talk about Areola, of course, and we says about Frank, but because Areola's doing it a different way, it's entertaining, it's high pressing, it's great to watch. And I'll be honest with you, the Spurs players were out in their feet at the whistle. You seen them all collapse to
yeah.
the floor. Bournemouth were fit, they were great, they were unbelievable at times, and their quality on the ball at times was even better. But I did say to my dad, because my dad was loving watching Bournemouth, and I did say to him, the only worry I think for a top club is that style of football sustainable 3 times a week? Bournemouth play once a week. Is that going to be sustainable, on a Tuesday, Saturday basis?
Well, it's been
I'm not
shown
sure.
it's been shown with Ange that it's not.
Yeah.
And he plays like not similar, but Ange would be a bit more intense than him. But as you say, Bournemouth only play once a week. But if he was the if
And they had all those injuries, Bournemouth as well, playing once a week.
Would you say? Well, I'm going by your thinking. If Ange does leave, do you think Areola will be the man that you go after?
I think it'll be Areola, Frank, and Silva will be the contenders, unless they're looking at somebody in Europe. But I think they're the 3 obvious Premier League contenders. Now, I think Areola will be probably number 1. Frank will be number 2 choice, and I think number 3 will be Silva of a Premier League shortlist. McKenna possibly could be looked at as well, but again, it's a massive, massive jump. I think Bournemouth is the most similar style to Spurs.
Yeah.
Not every style is the same, but it's the most similar of those 3 clubs to Spurs.
Yeah. McKenna's been at Spurs before, like so he knows how it works.
Yeah. Well. But I think, from what I understand, Areola is going to be the top contender.
Do you think if he's won the Europa League, he'll stay, or do you think he'll make a change regardless of what happens?
Nah, we'll come on to it actually, in a little minute. But Arsenal drew 1-1 at United. Best 45 minutes from United probably since Anfield in that second half. I mean, only for David Raya. I know he made a mistake with a goal, but some massive saves, and it would have been a United win always.
Aye, they were good. They were very good in that second half. But like when you look at that United, I know they have injuries and arguably more than Arsenal. But when you look at that United starting 11 yesterday, like does any of them get into the top 10 teams? Like
Yeah, I think the only player that Fernandez at the minute's probably been one of the most informed
He,
players. He's carrying that
he's
team.
been good.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him because I mean, is he going to wait for this to keep going, or does the team come on from?
We and I spoke about it to you. I spoke about it to you before we came on. Like Jim Radcliffe did an interview with Gary Neville just about an hour or two ago. It was released, and he's come out and said they still have to pay millions and millions for players that they've signed years ago. He said, what else? He said that they should have sacked Ten Hag earlier. It's just a mess. And you seen yesterday there was like 5,000 United fans protesting, and it was even when United were winning, or sorry, I won yesterday. It was just a very strange atmosphere.
Mm. And Chelsea beat Leicester by a goal to nil. Palmer's going for a bit of a rut, missed a penalty for the first time. Chelsea and our team get a lot of penalties. Last season as well got a lot of penalties because Palmer, the fact that he's had 13 Premier League penalties in a season and 3 quarters tells you everything. They're getting a penalty every few games, but they seem to have had a lot of them.
I didn't really pay attention to these last 2 Chelsea games because it was Southampton and Leicester. Like you would expect them to
beat them. But they had to get 6 points in those 2 games. They've got them without playing particularly well. It'll be interesting to see how that Arsenal game goes because Chelsea, if they could win that, would be in with a great chance of top 4, top 5, whatever we want to call
it. If Chelsea won that many ones, would Liverpool need then 2? Is it?
Nah, I still think they need. We need the game, but I think they would need 4 ones then, would they, or whatever.
I think
it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely they want it before they play Spurs. I think it would need a massive Arsenal collapse of losing. I think Spurs Chelsea is the most likely. I think it's unlikely now to get to the Arsenal game. So there's a good chance Arsenal will be giving them a guard of honour, which will really rub salt into the wins.
And Callum, I think Callum was saying he's going to that Spurs game too. So
they could potentially win the league that day, but sure, it's going to be a one anyway at this stage. It's just what it's nothing that way. It's when and not.
You might get to see a title at one as a Spurs fan then.
Let's look ahead to the European games of one because some big clashes. Most of all, I'm really excited for this Liverpool PSG game tomorrow night. I thought PSG were absolutely outstanding last week, other than being a little bit profligate in front of goal. Obviously, I also made some big saves, but I still think the finishing could have been better from PSG, especially in the first half. But, I mean, they ran you absolutely ragged. I mean, it looked like an FA Cup tie where it was a one team that was completely superior to the other. And look, people can say great tactics. I'm not on that camp. I think it's pure luck they got a result.
No, I agree. I was watching it.
No team plans to give up that kind of them amount of shots and goal. I mean, it was the most ever they've conceded in a game in the Champions League or something.
27, I think it was. But no, PSG just look fatter than us. They look more athletic than us.
They won 4-1 yesterday away at Rennes, so I mean, it didn't throw them off their form.
I don't want to be rude, but they do play in a very, very, very easy league where they won it every season. So I don't really pay attention to
it's not so much the results. I'm looking at the performances, but they're blowing teams away consistently. If Liverpool were winning 4 and 5 every week, and we've already spoke about how poor this league is at times. They played the worst team ever possibly, and they've graced the Premier League. We'll have to see how Southampton get any more points. 3 times this year, and all 3 games were as tight as anything.
But no, they're the most informed team in Europe at the minute in terms of goal scoring, creating chances. So it'll like as I say, I was watching that game last Wednesday, and when the final whistle blew, my first words were, how did we?
It'll be interesting to see how they cope with Anfield, because I know Liverpool will definitely know, the fans will know that they need to be on they've seen PSG now, and this needs to be a big night at Anfield. It'll be interesting to see how PSG cope with that, but they strike me as a team that have no fear, because they weren't intimidated by Liverpool, and everyone was tipping them as favourites, and PSG are in a bad league, because they're so young. Do you think that makes them more dangerous, that they're fearless? There's a fearlessness there, bro?
It could be. I said this to a friend of mine. I would be more confident playing PSG if they still had Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar, because they didn't track back. I think what do you call your man in midfield? João Neves. He was unbelievable last week. But I think the Anfield factor will just get us over the line.
I think the first goal is massive in this game. If Liverpool get it, it's probably lights out. PSG get it, it's going to be nervy at Anfield, because I don't think they can be as bad in front of goal again because the record, the goal stats show you that they do score goals. So
Yeah.
I think if they get chances like that again, they're not going to make the mistake. The only issue I would have with them is the lack of a striker.
Uh,
Ramos come on, but they haven't got that number 9 world class player. They've got a lot of talented young players on the wings, very talented players in midfield. I actually think they've got better ball playing midfielders than Liverpool. I think Neves is a very, very tidy. Vitinha is very, very tidy. And they're
mm,
very, very good at keeping the ball. So it wouldn't surprise me if they dominated possession again, even at Anfield.
no, it wouldn't surprise me. To be honest, if we get out of there, we have just a positive result, like a 1-1 draw, and I
You take
take
a
that.
draw now.
I definitely like if we're sitting here this time tomorrow night, and I'm going right. It's 1-0 here. I'm going happy days. 1-1. Like as long as we're through, because as much as Aston Villa are a good side, I'd expect them. I'd expect us to beat them over 2 legs, and then we get on the Real Madrids and the.
I think whoever wins this tie, I'll be the favourites, regardless. I know Madrid's going to be in there. If they get through, I still think whoever comes through this tie will be the favourites. I think they're going to be a tough team to stop. And also the Madrid factor being in there if they do qualify. I think the winners likely to come from this side of the draw because it is a much tougher draw. Whoever gets to the final is going to really have earned it. And I know Barcelona could potentially lie in wait or Inter Milan, but I think they have an easier passage through. No easy games, of course, but I think the winner is likely to come from this side of the draw.
I remember today the last time we played PSG in the Champions League, we went on to win it. So maybe that's an
I think
omen.
the one thing that counts against Liverpool or PSG moving forward is I think they're both going to be at home first in the quarters and semis, so there won't be any Anfield Rescue Act. If they're held in the first game, it's going to be all down to their away form. I always think that's a massive advantage in Europe. The fact that I think Madrid they would play Arsenal at home next if they get through, away first and home second, and then Liverpool, if it was Liverpool, they'd be away first, home second. I think going to the Bernabeu in the second leg's tough.
To be fair, Liverpool have the best away record in the whole of Europe this season. So
yeah, I just don't think you want to be going to the Bernabeu but needing a result.
No, hey, don't count out Atletico either. I wouldn't want to go there either. But
that's going to be fascinating too to see how that goes. Is that on Wednesday night? That's on Wednesday night, isn't it?
The reverse this week. The Wednesday.
So I think that'll be the 2 games to watch for anyone that's looking to watch. I think Liverpool PSG on Tuesday and Wednesday night the Madrid derby.
How do you see it going, Andy? We'll
go through the games. So Liverpool PSG. How do you see it going, and who's qualifying?
Well, I'm obviously going to back my boys, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
I think he's going to get knocked out.
It's one of them.
I've sensed this over the last few games. I think he's running out of steam a wee bit because there's been so many poor performances in the last few games. Maybe not all through the games, but there's been 45 minutes here where they haven't been great. 45 minutes there, and I think if you do that against this PSG team, it's going to be big trouble. And I think they're at the moment looking at the trajectory of the two teams. The fact they went away to Rennes and scored 4 goals at the weekend. Liverpool, let's be honest, needed penalties. I know you said they created a few chances after, but without them penalties, who knows? They might have scripted a 2-1-1. But I mean, this is a Southampton team that have been shipping goals. I mean, they've been getting bit 4s and 5s the last few weeks. So I mean, that was a big shock to be seeing that Southampton were going there in the first half and were comfortable. So I'm not sure if he's just running out of steam in terms of legs and he's played a lot of games and there's been a lot of players playing. I think Salah's form in the last few games has dropped off. I know he scored a couple of penalties, but I don't think he's beating players the way he was.
To be fair, he has fasting as well at the minute.
No, of course, and he's in that period. I was just about to say he's in that period, and I think Nuno Mendes had his number last week.
He did.
And he's a big, strong, powerful lad. So I don't think he'll be phased by Salah. He can play with his left foot, right foot. So I think them individual battles are going to be key. But I think PSG are going to overturn this based on what I've seen over the last few weeks. If it goes on form, I think PSG will turn these over.
I'm not going on there saying we're definitely going to go through. It's a 50-50 game, and I wouldn't be surprised if either team go through.
I know it's only the League Cup too, but Liverpool will have an eye on the final too. I do think, not completely, but that will be in the back of our heads about Wembley on Sunday.
Obviously, I want to go on and win the Champions League. But if we end the season with a League Cup and a Premier League, I'll not be too disappointed.
Yeah. So no, you're going Liverpool, I'm going PSG. Arsenal are going to cruise through. We know they're home and host. That's a dead rubber. Villa, I think, are going to be comfortable. Yeah,
You
at
would
home.
think so. You would think so.
So let's move on to some of the other games. The Madrid derby one. That is going to be fascinating. At Atletico, 2-1 down. They are at home. They Madrid. Madrid didn't play that well, but again found a way to win. Something that we've become accustomed to in Europe.
They always do.
And Atletico have a really poor record against them in this competition, and I think they've went out to them something like 6 times in the last 9 years. So all the stats point to Real Madrid coming through this. But I'm just not sure Madrid are the team they were in terms of there's something there, nothing. I think
Atletico are going to go through on penalties.
I think Madrid will stumble through a draw in this game, and that'll be enough. I think it'll be a draw, so the Real Madrid.
Is Bellingham back for this one?
Not sure.
No, he went off injured yesterday, I think.
Bayern are 3-0 up against Leverkusen. Is that tie over?
And then I don't know if you've seen, but Wirtz is injured as well. So that's another big blow for them.
How big of an advantage would it be in the final if Bayern get there? I know they lost to Chelsea in their home patch weight, but do you think that's a big advantage from Bayern if they because they're on an easier side of the draw? Would that make a big difference in the final?
Oh, of course it will. Like it's home advantage. Of course you're gonna feel more comfortable at home, but it's gonna be whoever gets the. I think as you say, whoever wins tomorrow out of Liverpool PSG, I think one of them will get to the final.
Yeah. Inter Milan taking on nicely, top of the league in Italy, and cruising the victory here against Feyenoord.
Yeah,
are they a team that teams will dread playing because of the style of play? They're very much a throwback. They're going to make it. They're dogged. They're resilient. Don't concede many goals and don't need a lot of goals to win games.
They were a bit yesterday, I think, or the weekend.
No, they won 3-2.
Did they?
They were 2-0 down.
I was 2-0 down when I checked that, so I didn't see the final score. But no, you seen in that final they played against Man City. Like other than that, Rodri, like the winner, Lukaku must have a few chances in that game. And who do they have now? Lautaro Martinez.
I think they're better. They're a better team than they were then too.
Who's their manager now? Is it Sam Pioli?
Inzaghi.
But they are, and you seen when they played Arsenal in the league phase. They're just dogged defensively. They don't concede many goals, and they have a lethal striker up front. So they will be a hard team to face over 2 legs.
So quarterfinals, then we're going Arsenal, Real Madrid. No, you're going Arsenal, Atletico. I'm going Arsenal, Real Madrid. I'm going PSG, Villa. You're going Liverpool, Villa.
Yeah.
Bayern, is it Bayern Inter? Is that?
I think that's how
Barcelona would play. Who would Barcelona play? They're 1-0 up against Benfica. Who's the other tie? Dortmund. Is it? Dortmund. They are. What's the story with Dortmund again?
I think they're like 4-1 up or 3-1 up.
Yeah, so Barcelona, Dortmund, we think. Some tasty ties on there. I just think that the left side of the draw is so much stronger.
Yeah, so much for finishing first in the league phase.
Let's move on to the Europa League because it's a huge night ahead. I mean, it's season defining for Spurs and Man United. United drew with Sociedad away, which is a pretty decent result, but they have struggled to win games at home, and the pressure's going to be on this game. The pressure was kind of off on Sunday. Everyone kind of still expected Arsenal to win. There wasn't really much riding on it in terms of the point, where they were going to finish in the league, but there's a lot of pressure on this game. Can this United team cope with that pressure at home against Sociedad?
You would expect them to. I know they're not great at home, but I'm gonna back them to go through. I'm gonna go United 1-2-0.
I can't call this game at all. I'm just not confident in United's ability to score goals. So I think it's going to be super tight. Unless Fernandes gets set pieces. I mean, they've struggled to create from open play. Højlund doesn't look like he could score a goal. Garnacho's a bit of a headless chicken at the minute. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the goals come from. I know Xerxes did score in the first game, but he's not been prolific. I think it could be a long, long night at Old Trafford. I could see this going potentially all the way. I think Sociedad too will be keen not to make it an open game because they've seen what United did in the counter-attack, the Arsenal. They'll be very, very trying to keep control. But I can't call this at all. I could see this being a flop of a coin.
No, I know I said 2-0 United, but I do agree. Like if we're sitting here on Thursday night, then we're in extra time, but I just think United will squeeze through just about.
Spurs beaten by AZ, a really poor result, a really poor performance. And says they will play better on Thursday night.
Not sure he said
I'm not confident. I'm not confident they will because they've not been great.
I mean, you look
Ancelotti's performance was poor. They were poor against AZ, and they were very, very poor against Bournemouth yesterday. If they play like that, they're going to struggle. They overturn this.
Yeah.
But I think in these big, big games, teams. I mean, Spurs were huge favourites for this tie. I think AZ will probably love to rue those missed opportunities. Because I think away from home, it's going to be difficult. I think if Spurs were to get the first goal, they would be massive favourites to go through on the night.
Yeah.
I think Spurs will probably do enough, but I don't see any way Spurs or United can win this competition based on they've got too many bad performances in them. But look, how do you see this Spurs game going on Thursday night?
I agree with you. I think AZ will rue their missed chances. I'm going to go with the same score, and I'm going to go 2-0 Spurs.
Yeah, I think Spurs will get there, but
so
I mean, it's a massive, massive night for Ange. I mean, he has to find a way to get this done. Do
you think if he's lose, then that's it for him?
He could possibly see Fulham on Sunday just because there's such a quick turnaround. But I think he won't walk out the other side of the international break. I think Mason will probably get the last 8 games in the league.
I just realized too, for us especially, it's going to be a long international break because we don't even play after it because we're not in
the FA Cup.
It's going to be long.
But who do you see in as favourites for these competitions, Champions League and Europa League? And who are you looking at?
Like, you can't look past Real Madrid for the Champions League. I'm obviously going to say Liverpool's going to be in there because in my head we're still going to be in there. But if PSG were to get through, I wouldn't be. I think this could be the year where they get over the line. There's so many teams in it in the Europa League. I'm going to say Lazio.
They seem to be the most consistent team. I mean, they won with 9 men, didn't they, against that Victoria Pilsen? So Spurs could potentially meet them in the semi-final, but I think Spurs will have it all on to get past Frankfurt in the quarters, to be honest.
Who do United play if they get through?
Lyon, I think it will be.
Lyon aren't pulling up any trees in the French league from what I see.
They would have Bilbao or Roma in the semis. I think they would struggle.
Everyone was thinking it's a banker
could be a Lazio Roma final, in Spain.
That would be the Roma. There would have to be like security. There would have to be security upon security.
I'm sorry, I forgot Rangers. They're 3-1 up away at Fenerbahce. Probably the shock result of the round, going there and winning. Not good for Jose. I think, it doesn't look like they're going to win the league in Turkey. If they go out the Rangers, I think that'll be deemed a failure. Do you think Fenerbahce can turn it around, or do you think Rangers at home will be too strong with a 2-goal lead?
Because Rangers are at home and they have a 2-goal lead, I think they'll. And to be fair, I think Rangers will throw their eggs in all this basket now because they're not going to. I know they have a big game on Sunday as well against Celtic, but they're not going to make up is it 16 points they're behind?
Yeah.
Celtic, so they're not going to make up that gap. So for Rangers, if they can get past here, then who knows where I could take them? Like they got the final a few years ago and lost in penalties. So who knows if they can do it again?
British team standing come Thursday night. Who knows?
Oh, that would be hard to listen to. I don't even care about
stamina of Rangers are out seeing Spurs and United in this competition. But look, that's where we're at the moment. Spurs, they're pretty much rock bottom in terms of morale. I think
it's just if Spurs do go out, then is there any point in playing the remaining games because they don't really mean much?
No, we've had too many seasons, I guess, but we're not at the end of the season and you've missed in charge and they're just petering the season out. But massive change needed.
What he's doing
the Ange thing's ran its course. I says this in January. I says, look, I think come the end of the season, that's got to be it. He's been given time. He's had bad luck at times, no doubt about it. But the results haven't been good enough. Do you think he's the sole problem? Definitely not, because there's been so many managers before him that have struggled. There needs to be a fundamental change, I think, at the club.
Do you think he would get another Premier League job?
I think he would, just based on the fact that he managed one of the bigger clubs and there is an entertainment value to his style of play. So I think teams would jump at that.
Do you think if just say hypothetically Areola goes to Spurs, do you think and will be on top of Bournemouth's list?
No, because I think Bournemouth are a bit more strategy planning than
No,
that. I think he's more likely to be a West Ham manager or something like that.
no, that would be madness. That would be
Yeah.
madness.
Well, Owen,
No.
it's been great having you on. For anyone that was watching there, do feel free to sign up for more content. You can like the video and subscribe. We'll be back on Friday, looking back at all these midweek European results and looking ahead to the final Premier League match round before the international break, and also, of course, previewing the AFL Cup final where Liverpool face Newcastle, and a massive game for both teams for different reasons. But
we're going to watch it, and I have a record of Liverpool never losing when I'm out with you. So long may I continue. Actually, I think the last game we watched together was Liverpool Newcastle as well.
yeah, true. And he's won that 2-1. I don't know how.
I just seen their lineup. Isaac's fit, so he'll be in for the final. Hopefully,
interesting to see how Newcastle do time. Of course, kicked off against West Ham about 10 minutes ago. So if you're new around here, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe for more content. And we'll see you very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.